Do not look directly at her core, the mission officer warned again as they reached the segmented airlock. It's like staring at a soul in their culture. It's personal, intimate, maybe even sacred. Elias Cormac nodded, though he wasn't sure his face conveyed understanding. His mind was already chewing on the warning, twisting it around the memory of the last time he'd seen it, the pulse, the color. He had only glimpsed it for a second, 3 days ago, during a pre-briefing. Pass in the docking ring. Just a chance encounter. She had walked past, tall and silent, her translucent exoskeletal thorax aglow with a light unlike anything he'd seen violet, not the usual Velari blue of calm and logic. Something strange, something alive, and something that changed the second. She looked at him out the airlock door, hissed open, cutting off his thoughts. Cool mist swept past his boots, carrying the faint scent of distilled mineral vapor. The lighting beyond was dim and iridescent, casting soft gradients of sea green and twilight across polished black walls. The Velari designed their ship interiors like quiet sanctuaries, places of stillness reflection. It always unsettled the more boisterous humans. Elias stepped through into the corridor of the Shroud of Harmony, toolkit in hand, boots clicking softly on the smooth composite floor. As the door sealed behind him, he took a steadying breath. He had trained for diplomatic service, studied xenotechnics for 3 years. This was supposed to be a career milestone. Instead, he felt like a trespasser. Her quarters were located in the upper command ring. No guards, no assistants. Just an obsidian door framed by silver lines that pulsed in time with the ship's breathing. He pressed the chime and waited. The door opened without a sound. Elias stepped inside. The room was unlike any space he had worked in before, less like living quarters and more like a place of worship. The walls were etched with symmetrical patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. Soft blue light glowed from unseen sources, and faint strings of pheromone mist curled in the air like incense. It smelled like ozone and cinnamon bark, and she was already there. Commander Varel Esha stood near the far wall, facing a panel of floating glyphs. Over 7 feet tall, draped in the elegant folds of her ceremonial carapace, she barely moved except for the faint flex of her hands. Her exoskeleton gleamed silver blue in the ambient glow, and her long limbs gave her the grace of a swaying sculpture. She turned her head only slightly. "You are the technician," she said. Her voice was calm, like wind across frozen glass. Not quite emotionless, but balanced, controlled. "Yes, Commander," Elias replied, trying not to stare. "Elias Cormac. Environmental systems." She nodded once and gestured toward a shimmering panel on the left. "The regulation module is inconsistent with baseline values. Temperature flux beyond tolerance." He moved quickly toward the panel, grateful for the distraction. But then his eyes slipped. It was unintentional. A flicker. A glance. Her core sat nestled in the center of her chest, visible through the delicate plate of transparent chitin. A softly glowing sphere, not mechanical, not decorative, but biological. Most Velari pulsed a steady, soft blue. Not hers. Hers was violet. And it flickered like a heartbeat shifting in rhythm, surging toward something it could not name. And she saw him look. For a breathless second, the room was too quiet. She didn't move. Didn't scold him. Didn't issue warning or command. Instead, she just looked back at him. Not at his hands, not at the panel. At him, as if waiting. Then, softly, her core dimmed back to something closer to blue. But the violet never fully disappeared. Elias quickly turned back to the console, fingers trembling just slightly as he began his diagnostic sweep. His heart was thudding louder than the hum of the power relays. She hadn't looked away, and somehow that unsettled him more than if she had. The silence stretched between them like a drawn wire thin. sharp, waiting to snap. Elias tried to keep his breathing steady as he worked, eyes fixed on the diagnostic readouts. The panel glowed with alien sigils, their shifting geometry foreign, but decipherable thanks to the neural overlays in his visor. Still, his focus wasn't on the code dot, it was on the silence behind him, on the presence that hadn't moved. On the way, the air itself seemed charged. He could feel her gaze. Then, finally, it came her voice, low and crystalline, a sudden drop. In a still pool. "Why are your eyes down there, human?" The question fractured the silence, and with it, Elias's control. His fingers froze on the panel. He turned slowly. Virel Asha had moved closer, perhaps 2 steps. Her towering frame was still, hands folded behind her back, face expressionless. But her core pulsed brighter now, that impossible violet bleeding into blue like dusk chasing day. Elias opened his mouth, closed it, then forced words out before the moment swallowed him whole. "I didn't mean to. I was just," he exhaled. "I was curious." Her head tilted slightly. Not sharply, not like reprimand. More like a question unspoken. The way a musician listens to an unexpected note. "Curious," she repeated, as if testing the word's weight in her mouth. "Most humans avoid looking." "I remember the briefings," Elias said. "But I also remember seeing something. Days ago, in the docking ring. Your core, when you passed me, you noticed it then too. It wasn't a question." He blinked. She stepped forward again, and the lights around the room dimmed, reacting to her proximity. Her presence seemed to bend the atmosphere like gravity. When she stopped, she was close enough that Elias had to tilt his head up to meet her eyes silver, reflective, unreadable. "You saw the color change," she said softly. "Yes," he admitted. "I'd never seen violet before. In any of the archives. I thought it might have been a glitch." "Violet," she murmured, her gaze not breaking. "A color lost to my people. Buried, some say, by purpose, others by fear." Elias swallowed. Then why did it appear? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, her gaze drifted slowly, almost cautiously down to his face, then to his chest, as if mirroring the gaze he had given her earlier. Not invasive, not unkind, studying, because something in you resonated, she said finally. A frequency, an energy, or perhaps something older. Elias felt like the room had tilted sideways. His pulse beat in his throat. "I don't understand?" "No," Virel said. "Neither. Do one." For a long moment, nothing passed between them but breath and soft pulsing light. Then she turned. "The system must be recalibrated manually," she said, as if the moment hadn't happened. "Secondary relays may be degrading." Elias let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding and returned to the panel. But the quiet had changed. It wasn't empty anymore. It hummed now with possibility. And behind him, unseen, Commander Virel Asha's core flickered again. Violet, then gold, then something in between. Asterisk, "You're quiet for a human." The words floated across the chamber like mist. Not cold. Not sharp. Just stated. Elias didn't turn right away. He was still kneeling at the access panel, fingers working through the unfamiliar tangle of Valari relay sequences. The interface pulsed faintly under his touch, warm like living skin. The systems here had a bioorganic quality to them that always gave him the sense that the ship was alive in some silent, breathing way. "I was taught to be," he said after a pause, "especially around Valari superiors." "I did not ask." "For flattery," she replied. Elias glanced over his shoulder, unsure if that was irritation or something else. But when he looked, she wasn't standing in the same spot. She had moved closer again. Not too near, but enough that her presence pressed gently at the edge of his space. Her core glowed in that strange gradient still. Blue, violet, now with streaks of pale amber that shimmered faintly across the transparent plate of her thorax. He quickly turned back to the panel. I didn't mean it as flattery. Just observation. Observation, she echoed. Then silence again. Asterisk, but not the cold kind. This was something else now. Something contemplative. Curious, I've had 4 human technicians before you, Varel said after a moment. Elias frowned. I saw the logs. None lasted more than a week. They were competent, she added. Efficient. But their cores, your word might be presence, disturbed my work. Too loud? He offered, half smiling. She tilted her head again. Too fearful. Elias paused. And me? You are not loud. And you are not afraid. I am, he admitted quietly. Just not of you. That finally made her pause. Her silver eyes met his again, and for the first time, he saw something in them that wasn't aloof command. It was focus, study, the way someone examines a data point that refuses to fit expectations. Asterisk, I respect what you are. Elias continued. Not just your rank, the culture, the restraint, the architecture of thought. He gestured faintly around the room. But I don't think I can pretend not to notice things, especially when they glow. Her core pulsed in response. A flicker of brighter amber. Most Villari work for years to suppress the light of feeling, she said. To keep it blue, stable, logical. Why? He asked. Because emotion can disrupt the core, undermine clarity, lead to irrational actions, broken judgment, or connection, Elias offered, voice low. That made her fall completely still. Asterisk. He turned back to his work, not because he was finished, but because the moment felt too sharp, too new, and he didn't want to break it. The panel beeped softly, accepting his recalibration command. System rebalanced, he said. Humidity. Variance corrected. He stood. She was still watching him. Will that be all, Commander? He asked, professionally now. Yes, she said slowly, but then added, for now. As he stepped toward the exit, she spoke again so softly, he almost missed it. You notice the colors change, even when I try to hide them. Elias paused with his hand on the doorframe. They're beautiful, he said, and this time, when her core flared gold behind him, he knew it wasn't a malfunction. Asterisk, he was summoned again 2 days later. No repair request, no system update. Just a message routed through internal comms. Technician Elias Cormac, please report to Commander Varel Shah's quarters. Non-urgent. He reread it 3 times, uncertain whether he was imagining the absence of formality. Valery never labeled things non-urgent, only prioritized by necessity. And this felt like something else entirely. When he arrived, the lights were dimmer than before. Not dark, just softened, like early evening on Earth. He stepped inside quietly, and this time, she wasn't standing in the center of the room. She was kneeling. Commander Varel Asha, the towering Villari officer revered for her composure and flawless logic, was lowered beside a low-slung platform, surrounded by columns of softly glowing fluorotranslucent tendrils, pulsing blue and violet, swaying without wind. I've never seen this part of your quarters, Elias said, stepping cautiously closer. It is not part of my quarters, she answered without rising. This is the observation chamber, reserved for reflection and calibration. It is linked to the biocore of the ship. Few are permitted entry. And I'm permitted? You are anomalous. Her core pulsed violet as she said it. An anomaly should be observed. He gave a quiet chuckle, though something in his chest stirred at her words. And what are you observing now? She looked up. Not just with her eyes, her whole posture lifted, realigned, like a machine recalibrating. "You," she said simply. Elias crossed the threshold and immediately felt the change in the air. It was thicker here, but not unpleasant, charged. Every breath felt like inhaling potential. The tendrils of light surrounding her reacted to his approach. They shimmered, then shifted hue, blue like hers, then violet, then gold. He froze. "Did I do that?" "You did," she said, rising to her full height now. "These are neuroflora, grown from our homeworld. They respond to resonance emotional patterns, biofield waves, and they're responding." "To me?" "Yes," she said, stepping closer. "They respond to us." He didn't speak. Couldn't. She walked around him, slowly, as the lights swayed in synchrony. When she stopped in front of him again, she reached toward one of the violet-tipped tendrils. Her forefingers hovered above it, then touched it gently. The light pulsed, then faded to soft amber. "You spoke of connection," she said, voice hushed. "That word is foreign to us. But ancient texts, old teachings, long buried describe something similar, called revelin. What is it?" She took his hand delicately, carefully, as if it might vanish in hers. His fingers were dwarfed by hers, but she held them like they mattered. "It means resonance. A rare occurrence where two beings affect each other's biofield so strongly that their cores begin to align." Elias's heart thundered. "Why would your people hide that?" "Because it undermines control," she said softly. "It creates change. We are taught to contain ourselves. But when revelin occurs, containment fails." Her core glowed fully now, violet with streaks of gold, casting luminous threads across the chamber. "Containment's overrated," Elias said breathlessly. And though neither of them moved, it felt as if the entire chamber leaned in, breath held, heart poised, waiting for what came next. Asterisk, the summons came, but not from her. Elias was called to central integration, a sleek, sterile expanse at the heart of the shroud of harmony. He'd never been there before. Few humans had. The corridor smelled like nothing. The lights didn't hum. The silence was too perfect. 2 Valari officers awaited him outside the chamber, taller than average, their cores pulsing with flawless icy blue. Logic incarnate. One of them tilted its head in the same measured way Viral often did, but it felt different here, judgmental, calculating. "You are Elias Cormac," the taller one said. "Yes," Elias replied cautiously. "Systems technician, environmental class." "We are aware," said the other. "You've been observed." He stiffened. "Observed? How?" "Your interactions with Commander Viral Asha have triggered irregularities in her core readings, emotional frequencies, pulses of color not seen in a generation." "She's not malfunctioning," Elias said quickly, almost reflexively. The taller officer ignored that. "Your proximity to her has caused disruption. Containment thresholds have been exceeded. She is out of alignment." Elias took a breath. "She's not a machine. She's a person." "A commander," the officer corrected. "And a symbol. You are not authorized to influence her core." "I didn't mean to." "You must cease further unsanctioned contact. Return to your assigned duties. Effective immediately." Elias's hands balled into fists. "She asked me to help her. She invited me, showed me your ancient archives, your neuroflora, the revelin bond." At that, the 2 officers stiffened visibly. Their cores flickered for the briefest moment, an imperfection in their otherwise rigid blue. The taller officer leaned in, voice lower now. "You speak of fables best left buried. Commander Asha is vulnerable. Do not mistake her curiosity for permission." "I won't stop seeing her," Elias said, steady now. "Not if she still wants to see me." Neither officer moved. Then they stepped aside in perfect unison. You have been warned. Later that cycle, back in his quarters, Elias stood at the edge of his bunk, mind spinning. Revelin, neuroflora, ancient truths buried under protocol. Why hide something so powerful? Why fear resonance? The chime rang not from his come. From his door when he opened it. Varel stood there unarmored, wrapped in a loose robe of flowing violet. Her core glowed through the sheer fabric like a heartbeat. You came, he breathed. I was followed, she said simply, stepping inside. They will know soon. Elias swallowed. Why risk it? She turned to face him fully. Because they've lied to us for centuries. And because I feel the truth when I'm near you. It burns through my core. He reached toward her, but paused, his hand hovering. I don't want to make this harder for you. You already have, she said, stepping into his space. Her forehead touched his. Her breath was cooler than his, but steady. And I welcome it. In that moment, her core burst into radiant violet and gold, bathing the room in swirling light. Elias could feel it on his skin, like warmth from a sun he never knew existed. The room trembled. Then came the sound neither of them expected. Harsh hiss of a door override. The officers had come. And they had seen. The bond was no longer private, and nothing could be contained now. Asterisk, the light vanished the moment the door hissed open. Virel stepped in front of Elias instinctively, shielding him with her tall frame, as two Velari officers entered, their cores pulsing a rigid, flawless blue. Behind them came a third figure taller, older, cloaked in ceremonial silver robes marked with interlocking circles. The sigil of the Velari High Council. Elias knew him by reputation. Counselor Settle Tharn, head of protocol, speaker of purity. He had come himself. Commander Asha, Tharn said, his voice as smooth and sharp as polished glass. You have breached Core Regulation Protocol 13, Article 4 Emotional Interference by an external species. Virel didn't move. I invoked no protocol. I invoked truth. You allowed your core to become unstable, he snapped. And now the anomaly stands at your side. I stand on my own, Elias said, his voice steady despite the tremor. In his chest. And she didn't lose control. She opened herself. There's a difference. Human, Tharn said, turning to him for the first time. His eyes were like burnished steel, reflective and empty. You were warned. Your presence here is no longer permitted. Elias stepped forward, standing beside Virel, now rather than behind her. I didn't touch a switch or trigger a system. All I did was listen. Feel. That was enough to awaken something you've buried. Tharn's core flickered faintly. A crack in his composure. Revelin is myth. It's light. Virel said. I've seen it, felt it. The neuroflora responded. My performance hasn't declined. My calculations remain precise. In fact, they've improved. Emotion compromises clarity. It enhances clarity when understood, she said. You taught us to fear our own resonance, but my core doesn't lie. She reached down and took Elias's hand, not a subtle gesture, but a declaration. The moment their fingers touched, the chamber lights dimmed, and her core flared once more violet. At the center, but edged in gold. Elias felt it in his skin, in his bones. A harmonic vibration that hummed between them like a quiet song. Asterisk. Tharn's jaw tightened. Your future with the Council ends here. You will return to Velar Prime for purification. And the human will be removed from all classified stations permanently. No, Virel said calmly. I will not return. You defy a ruling of the High Council? I reveal a truth the High Council has chosen to forget. Her voice, usually cool and even, was now radiant with a strength Elias hadn't heard before. Not rebellion dash certainty. Counselor Thorne gestured. To the guards. Separate them. But they hesitated. Because now, even the guards saw what Elias saw. The light wasn't dimming. It was growing. Faint golden tendrils curled from Virel's core into Elias's chest, intangible. Luminous threads that shimmered like living silk. We are connected, she said, her voice a whisper only Elias could truly hear. And you cannot sever light once it takes root. Tharn turned sharply. This is corruption. It must be excised. But the guards still didn't move. And Elias understood something in that moment. They were afraid. Not of him, not even of her, but of what it meant if she was right. If Revelin was real, then exile me, Virel said softly. But know this, every time you suppress what we are, something ancient waits beneath it, pulsing quietly in the dark. As the guards finally moved to surround them, Elias squeezed her hand. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And the light would not fade. Asterisk. They didn't speak as the transport door sealed. The silence wasn't empty. It throbbed with everything left unsaid, everything too vast for words. Elias sat across from Virel in the small diplomatic shuttle, surrounded by quiet humming panels and pulsing amber indicators. The council had been swift. Exile from Velari-controlled sectors. Effective immediately. No hearing. No negotiation. And yet, neither of them looked broken. Virel's core still glowed in soft gold and violet hues, steady now, as if the chaos of judgment and punishment had clarified rather than crushed her. Elias watched her in the dim light, tracing the outline of her face, the way her silvery skin caught every flicker like living chrome. He couldn't imagine a future without her. Not now. Do you regret it? He asked finally, voice low. Her silver eyes met his without hesitation. No, even in exile, she spoke like a commander. I think I was always meant to be disassembled, she added, more quietly now. Not in my body, in what I was taught to be, what they needed me to be. Elias reached across the narrow space between them and took her hand. She no longer hesitated to accept it. The shuttle touched down on an outpost world in the joint-free zone, borderland between Velari and human jurisdictions. Neutral, forgotten, free, they stepped onto alien soil, together an arid plateau ringed by low, glowing trees and distant spires of mist-covered stone. The sky was violet and endless. The station that awaited them was modest. A research facility, a greenhouse, a small command wing, empty quarters. And an arboretum. That's where they went first. The facility's neuroflora had long since dimmed, kept alive but dormant in silence, forgotten by diplomats who preferred logic over life. But when Virel entered, something shifted. The plants stirred. Their tendrils rose. And when Elias stepped in after her, they bloomed. Brilliant waves of light poured through the chamber, gold, violet, pale crimson, soft white. The chamber breathed. She turned to him. Her core pulsed wildly now, not with fear, not with shame, but with truth fully uncovered. A soul unmasked. I know what this is now, she said. Elias stepped closer. Tell me, it's not just Revelin. That's only the beginning. Her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. What we share isn't an error or a deviation. It's a pathway, a bridge across our species. Then let's walk it. She smiled a full expression now. Not a flicker, not a test. Her hand lifted and gently touched the side of his face. In our oldest language, she said, there is a word we no longer teach. It was purged along with the stories of the bonded core. What word? Serale. She leaned in, pressing her forehead against his, just as she had that first day in the observation chamber. It means the light that cannot be taken. Their cores hers visible. His buried in flesh sang a matching rhythm. And for the first time, the neuroflora, echoed that resonance outward. The signal left the chamber, past the station walls, up through atmospheric beacons, into subspace relays. An echo of gold and violet moving silently across stars, across Villari, space dot across human outposts. And something began to change, not loudly, not with fire or war, but with a pulse, with light. Dozen commanders began to question. A few dared to search dot, and somewhere on a console, far from stars, one rigid blue core flickered dot, not in defiance, but in curiosity. Back in the arboretum, Elias and Varel stood beneath the glowing canopy, wrapped in the golden light of a connection that no longer needed to be hidden. They had been exiled by fear, but they had become emissaries of truth, dot of Cyrille dot, and in time, the galaxy would follow. Asterisk the END. Asterisk